Welcome. In this video, I'm going to demonstrate my entire process for creating a karaoke track from beginning to end, going from the audio to validating and arranging the lyrics, to syncing the lyrics with the audio, formatting the way I want it to appear on screen, editing in a video editor, adding titles and whatnot, and then finally uploading. This is all being done from Linux in my case. I'm using OpenSUSE Tumbleweed, but it can be run from Ubuntu, Debian, really Red Hat, really anything, as long as you can run Wine, which is what I'm using to run Karaoke Builder Studio. So start this process off. Normally I start with the audio. Sometimes I don't and then regret it because sometimes the audio is hard to work with or doesn't work at all. So I use X-, which runs the UVR and MDX models, and it's pretty easy to use. Let me fix my audio device there real quick.
A fusion of rock and jazz and funk and pop and R&B. They embodied the sound of the lonely early 70s male. His misanthropic disaffection and his sad on me. But judging by that look on your face, you still don't really get what I mean. So I'm gonna keep on explaining till you understand that Steely Dan is the great.
So usually I check the vocal part first to make sure that I didn't get anything extra in the vocals. Then I'll listen to the instrumental and make sure that sounds good. I usually separate all the vocals from the instrumental, and then after that I'll try to separate individual vocals from each other. And that makes it so that I can adjust the levels of the vocals more easily. So in this case, it sounded pretty good as a starting point, so I'm going to go ahead and download those. Always in FLAC format so I don't lose anything. Okay, next step, I'm going to run the vocals through a karaoke filter to get the backing vocals. And you're seeing this in real time. It does take a few moments, but normally not too long to run.
Sad on me. Is sad on me. But judge.
So it doesn't sound perfect here, but it doesn't sound too bad.
Plain until you understand that Steely Dan is the greatest band that there's ever been.
So I am going to run with this model, but I will do a little bit to improve that sound. So open up in Audacity. And I got the instrumental track there, and then the two halves of the vocal part. And what I'll do in this case is I'm just going to add a little bit of the lead back in with the harmony at the parts where the harmony is. Because it still sounds like a backing part that way, and it just makes it sound a little cleaner. And notice now I'm trying to narrow down if there's anything else from the lead part that I don't want to get in there. So just to be clear, the top part is the instrumental, the middle part is the backing vocals that are pulled out, and the bottom part is the lead. Okay, so I've got rid of the parts I don't want. Now I'm going to lower the gain of the lead part, so it's just barely audible and kind of fills in some of the gaps in the harmony.
Understand, Steely Dan, greatest man. Set on me. Set on me.
It still sounds a little bit weird just with the vocal parts, but when you combine with the instrumental, it's probably okay. So we'll hear the whole thing in a second. Okay, listening to it now, it doesn't sound as good as I remember, but I think it's still good enough. Okay, so just need to export this audio, then on to the next step. And realizing I didn't name the project file the way I like to, so I'm just fixing that. Okay, next up, let's get some lyrics. And they're on the official Paul and Storm site, so let's go with that one.
With their fusion of rock and jazz and funk and pop and R&B, they embodied the sound of the lonely early 70s male. His misanthropic disaffection and his sad ennui. But judging by that look on your face, you still don't really get what I mean. So I'm gonna keep on explaining till you understand that Steely Dan is the greatest band that there's ever been.
Remember that repeated, so there, place it there again. And the last line was missing. But I did not notice that don't repeated a few lines up, so we'll see how I deal with that later. So now I'm just going to rearrange these a little bit, because I don't like to have too much on screen at a time, and I also don't like to have lines that are too long. So I'm trying to figure out a good cadence. So I decided to split there. Sometimes with lists, I like to have each list item by itself. So I kind of do that here and then in the next place.
They embodied the sound of the lonely early 70s male. misanthropic disaffection and his sad on me. But judging by that look on your face, you still don't really get what I mean.
So I'm kind of humming along in my head, thinking about where I want to split these lines. Capitalization is interesting. I usually try to capitalize at the beginning of a phrase, even if it's not a sentence.
So I'm gonna keep on explaining till you understand that Steely Dan is the greatest band that there's ever been. That there's ever been. Can we go and get some ice cream?
Alright, so just going over and adding slashes for the syllables. Showing it in 2x time because I'm a bit slow at it. I did decide to spell out 70s so the syllables could be a little clearer. I still didn't notice that don't was repeated there. If it's a longer song or with a lot of repetition, what I'll do sometimes is use the Tool, which is a website that that has a lot of functionality for karaoke creation. But one of the things it can do is something called magic slashes. And if you make a slash in a word and then that word appears again, it'll add the slash to the other instance. So now I'm just looking at how the pages will look here, seeing if I need to do any additional changes. I'm going to be reformatting these to kind of center them, but I'm not doing that yet. This is just what I need for the initial sync here. This is Karaoke Builder Studio, by the way, running in Wine. It runs fine in Wine. So if you're using Linux, then you can use it. The only thing that doesn't really work well is the export features, but I don't use those anyway because I'm converting straight from the project file. Alright, so I added the auto track. I'm going to start a sync. Give me a sec. I'm going to zoom this in so you can see it better because it is tiny. Et voila. And I may leave it zoomed in too long by mistake, so be ready for that.
With their fusion of rock and jazz and funk and pop and R&B, they embodied the sound of the lonely early 70s male. His misanthropic disaffection and his sad on me. But judging by that look on your face, you still don't really get what I mean. But judging by that, Judging by that look on your face, you still don't really get what I mean. So I'm gonna keep on explaining till you understand that Steely Dan is the greatest band that there's ever been. That there's ever been. Can we go and get some ice beer? Can we go and get some ice?
So I've never been all that great at syncing. There's also some input lag that's always there that I cancel out, but you'll see that I do have to make a lot of tweaks to get it to actually sync the way I want. And now I finally notice don't. And I delete the word. I probably shouldn't have deleted the word. What I should have done was join it to itself and then remove the extra letters. Because you'll see it added the gap where I deleted the word. So yeah, here's where I forgot to zoom out. There we go. Now I zoomed out.
With their fusion of rock and jazz.
So I'm trying to figure out what the approximate input lag is here so I can adjust the whole track. And then I realized that since it started at the very beginning, I have to change the display time for the first word to make that work. So what I really should have done here is I should have added some margin at the beginning of the song. And you'll see I have to work around that later on in addition to here. So yeah, if something starts right at the beginning, it's always a good idea to add some margin. So now I'm showing this at 2x speed because I'm actually editing at 50% speed. So you hear it in the regular speed. You can control the length of some of these things during the sync, but I'm not very good at that, so I usually just use spaces to sync and then adjust it later. I do use keyboard shortcuts a lot in here. If you use Shift up, it'll adjust the beginning of a wipe. If you use Control and or Shift up or down, it adjusts the beginning. Same controller down, adjust the end. If you hold Alt with Shift and up, it'll turn off the sticky feature when you're doing that. Yeah, there's just all kinds of keyboard shortcuts here. You can learn and become a little more efficient. I still don't consider myself very efficient at this, but I'll take what little gains I can get. turns yellow when the wipe exceeds the display time. So while I'm editing the wipe part, I'll hit reset pretty often to get the display back to default.
Judging by that look on your face, you still face. Your face, you still don't really, you still don't.
Yeah, so there's the don't issue. See, there's just a gap there. So now I have to adjust and make sure that those are right next to each other. And see, I'm zooming in to see that they're exactly 1 pixel away. Because I forgot about the snap button.
You still don't really. Really get what I get, what I get, what I really get, what I get, what I get, really get, what I need. Get what I really get.
Sometimes it's hard to tell if the wipe is starting at the wrong place or going at the wrong speed. So sometimes you have to adjust like the end of it before realizing where the start was supposed to be. It's kind of weird.
Wanna keep on and explain it till you understand. Till you understand. Till you understand. Understand. It's Steely Dan. It's Steely. It's Steely Dan. It's Steely Dan. It's Steely Dan. He's the greatest man. Steely Dan is the greatest man.
Sometimes it's hard to tell when these notes end because they kind of blend into the background music. So to deal with that, some people swear by just syncing against the vocals instead of syncing against the whole track, but I usually don't bother with that. Because honestly, the singer is going to sing the note however long they want to anyway. So what I'll do usually is after I go through it all, at 50%, I'll listen to it again, and if I see issues, I'll go fix those. It's very time consuming.
But judging by that look on your face, you still don't really get what I mean. You still don't really. You still don't really get what I mean. So I'm gonna keep on explaining until you understand. Explain until you understand. That Steely Dan is the greatest man that there's ever been. That there's ever been. Can we go and get some ice cream?
Okay, so now I'm going to adjust the page a little bit. Instead of adding a gap to each page, I'm just going to add some more margin here so that anything with 4 lines is centered, and then I just need to adjust the ones with 3. So 15 to 16 roughly centers it. So just make that adjustment. And then these ones need a little more space, a gap, or I could have done 46, 47 down, but the gap's a little easier and it makes reset work a little better. Okay, so now that's set, reset, and then go ahead and edit the display remove timings. Well, I'm making sure it looks okay first, but yeah, going straight to display remove. So it does overlap a little bit because of the difference between the 3 and 4 lines having that extra 15 pixels. So I'm just going to adjust those. And I usually like to leave things on the screen a little bit more than it does by default. So I'll find couples of lines, for example, and try to keep them together. It kind of depends on the song, though. Some I'll do more editing here than others.
Get what I mean? So I'm gonna keep on explaining till you understand. It's Steely. Steely Dan is the greatest man that there's ever been. That there's ever been. That there's ever been. Can we go and get some ice cream?
I'm trying to add some spaces here so
Get what I
the
mean?
lines
So I'm gonna
don't go away at the exact same time as the new ones coming in. I think it just looks a little nicer.
But judging by that look on your face, you still don't really get what I mean. His affectionate is an on me. The fusion of rock and jazz and funky pop and R&B. They embody the sound of the lonely early 70s male. His misanthropic disaffection is an on me. But judging by that look on your face, you still don't really get what I mean. So I'm gonna keep on explaining till you understand that Steely Dan is the greatest band that there's ever been. That there's ever
I often second guess myself on these things. Alright, so now I'm going to do what I probably should have done before the display removed and add some lead-ins here. So this time I'm just going to go with a simple dash lead-in. So I add the lead-in and then I make it inline by joining it with the next line. And it does put in lead-ins by default as word by word. Oh, here's where I forgot to zoom out. So I'm going to change that from word by word to default. And you'll see that example later when I zoom out properly.
With their fusion of rock and jazz.
Yeah, I realized that first lead-in was going to be a problem, so I figured I'll deal with it later. There we go, zoom out. So now you can see what I actually did there. So I click on it and then go to default instead of word by word.
Jazz. Jazz. And funk and pop and R&B. Rock and jazz. And funk and pop and R&B.
So I'm just going ahead and adding a few now, and then I'll go edit each of them. I always find it difficult to click on those tiny little rectangles. I wish there were a way to change the font size or something that KBS used. Okay, now to fix the display, remove issues I caused by adding those.
Rock and jazz and funk and pop and R&B. They embodied the sound of the lonely early 70s male. His misanthropic disaffection and his sad on me. But judging by that look on your face, you still don't really get what I mean. So I'm gonna keep on explaining till you understand that Steely Dan is the greatest band that there's ever been. That there's ever been. Can we go and get some ice cream?
Notice this one does go a little bit off screen, but usually it won't go off screen in the final product because I'm using a 16:9 output format.
That there's ever been.
And yeah, I could have split this into 2 lines, but I kind of wanted it on one because it doesn't really have any gaps, and it's the last line, and I like having it just centered like that. Okay, so now I'm going to convert this to subtitle. I'm not using the KBP to video GUI that I created because I usually like to edit the subtitle file after I create it before creating the video. But for most people, I think KBP to video is better. So what I usually do is I take a copy of the subtitle file and then I edit the copy. And then if I need to make changes to the KBP, I'll do that, generate a new subtitle file, and then compare the differences. So you'll see me do that later. So what I did there was I just changed the font size. It normally scales up 12 point Arial to a virtual 16 point something because the ASS format works with line height instead of with the cap height that KBS uses. So it tries to compensate for that, but usually I want the fonts even larger. So for 12 point Arial, I want the font height to be, or the line height to be 22 normally. So that's what I set there. I'm running an FFmpeg command. If you'll notice, it's at 1080p. It's not at 4K, even though I release all my videos at 4K, because usually I create a quick test file first before I actually get around to creating the final one, because this renders a lot faster. So see, it's going at faster than real time, which means that I can preview it as it's rendering, which is nice. So one thing I didn't notice there at that point was that the lead-in to that first word wasn't there. And that's because it was actually negative start time, so KBP to ask just got rid of it. I'll fix that later. Otherwise, it looks pretty good. Okay, so now that's tested out. I'm going to go back to KBS and make some final tweaks here.
Of a lonely early 70s male. He's missing.
Yeah, I decided I needed another lead in there.
He's misanthropic. They embody the sound of a lonely early 70s male. His misanthropic disaffection and his sad on me. But judging by that look on your face, you still don't really get what I mean.
Decided I did not need one there. It's just locating the cover art there. And now I'm trying to determine what to do with colors here. What the wipe colors should be, if I should use multiple wipe colors. I usually use an outline of one here. I should probably template that. Decided to go with a black background this time. Usually use a gray outline, just somewhere in between the white text and the black background. Usually I go based on, the color scheme based on the album art, but this time I decided I wanted to check first, since this is about Steely Dan, if there's any kind of Steely Dan color scheme. So I kind of look around. And I basically find no, not really. So I kind of abandoned that. Look again at the ball pit there. Decided to go kind of reddish, like some of the balls in the pit were red. So here we go, generating a new subtitle file and comparing them here. So I've got the change that I made to add that additional lead in. And then after I update that, I'll also update the color change. Switch my font size back to 22 and good to go. And again, that lead-in's not there at the beginning. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and format the title slide, or the album art for the title. Usually I do kind of a old school CDG slideshow, but in high definition. Kind of like the look of that for some reason. So usually I'll resize the album art if it's not the right size, and then I'll center it on a black background. Or whatever my background color is anyway. It's a little bit easier to work with it this way, to do the transitions in Kdenlive, than just having it be the original aspect ratio. I always save as PNG here, so I don't lose any any data by recompressing or recompressing losslessly. And I pulled the wrong one in. I'll figure that out in a second. There we go. Pull my demo video in. Grab my standard logo slide. Create a title slide. And I put it in the wrong order. Usually I put the title at the top in bigger text. For some reason I didn't do that here. Now I center, and I kind of put the two pieces of text in like rule of thirds vertically. Decided since Steely Dan's usually in all caps in their album art, then I should make it all caps here in this title, even though it's not in Poland Storm's titling of it. Sometimes I'll do different transitions with these slides, but usually it's just a fade. So Kdenlive makes it really easy to fade. You just drag from the top corners. So notice I don't have a fade in for the album cover, but I do have a fade out for it. That's because the image I have on top of it has a black background, but the title slide has a transparent background. So I don't need the fade for the black background because it's already fading out the black. Yeah, so now I'm finally realizing that I need to fix that first lead in. Or maybe not. I get there eventually. Usually I like to do a fade out of the last line. So instead of 200 milliseconds, I think in this case I decided on a full second. Sometimes we'll be more careful about having it fade out exactly as long as the music fades out. But not always. And when you change a file underneath Kdenlive, it gets kind of annoyed with you. But it eventually figures out what's going on once the file's been done modifying. All right. Oh, what I was trying to do here was not fade in at the very beginning, so that I could extend that further in, so I could load the lines in earlier before the music starts. But I only did that to the first line instead of all the lines on the first page. And yeah, here's where I decide, I think, that I need to fix that first lead in. So I go back to the KBP file. Instead of opening it up in KBS, I just open it up in the text editor. And I noticed that -5 there. You can't really start at -5. So that's why KBP the ass took it out. So I'm changing it to 0. I also noticed the page display starts at -105. I think that just gets changed to 0 automatically, or gets changed to 1 or something. But I'm trying to change it just in case here. And it doesn't like being 0. I didn't realize that at the time. I need to fix that. But I don't think it normally gives you a 0 there ever. I think it always is 1 at minimum. So I'll make it 1. And I don't remember if this one is allowed to be 0. I make it 1 just in case. Okay, it's that converted. Go back to editing the file. Okay, so now it's got the dash there. That's good. And I'm going to leave that last line as is because the only update to that was the fade out I had added before. Okay, let's render it again. See what it looks like now. Nope. Okay, now it's rendered again. So that looks a little better. Now I'm going to try to extract that first frame. And then I'll fade that in. So what I should have done, again, was add some silence or some lead-in music. But I did not do that. So first I tried to take the first frame. And then I realized that since it started at 1 instead of 0, that first frame is actually empty. Well, eventually I realized that. I decided to separate out the audio and video so I don't do something messed up by splitting the audio. So I try to adjust the speed here to give, I think it was a second of fade in. We'll see. It was 2. Yeah, it was 2 seconds, sorry. And then I realize I have nothing. So I take the next frame. And I try to do the same thing. Now if you look closely, you can see that it'll look kind of messed up at the beginning. So I'm going to end up fixing that later. But basically, when I did that time stretch thing, it kind of transitioned from frame 1 to 2 instead of just doing frame 1. Okay, so now I think I'm going to render in full resolution here. Yep. So I changed the resolution to 4K. I set it to lossless VP9. So this takes a lot longer to render. So I speed up 10x for you. Maybe I should have gone 20. Oh well. Almost done. And I use the replace clip feature, so every time it found the other clip, it just puts in the new one. It's a pretty good feature of Kdenlive, so you don't have to. Videos a lot. Usually takes a lot longer because they're 3 or 4 minutes instead of just 1. Okay, so now I'm going to do a full render and see how it goes. And I'll use my naming scheme here, number 65. And again, speeding up for you. All right, it's rendered. Let's see how it looks. And see that glitch at the beginning there? So double checking that glitch is actually there. Yep, there it is. Yep, so see it's transitioning from frame 1 to 2 there. So I'm going to try another strategy here. So bring those 2 frames back. And then do what I should have done from the start here. And extract a frame instead of cutting the track there. So there's a nice feature there, extract frame. And now instead of being a 2-frame animation, it's a single frame. Keep over scrolling. Now I still have to get rid of frame 0 because that was black screen. And there we go. The nice thing about having a single frame instead of an animation is you can set the duration arbitrarily. You don't have to change the speed. Okay, so that looks much better. So I'm going to go ahead and render it again. Okay, let's give this one a look. No. Notice there is a little bit of red there in the first frame. That's because the wipe started immediately. What I could have done is added another frame before the wipe starts, but I decided this was good enough. Alright, so I'm calling this good, so I'm going to go ahead and publish it. So I keep the lossless version, and I upload that to YouTube, and I also create some additional versions, a full resolution MP4, as well as a lower resolution MP4. So those are generating right now. I have a little script to do it. One of the few things I actually did script. So now I'm going to YouTube and uploading. And I upload the lossless one so that YouTube can, have the original source file to recompress instead of compressing something that's already compressed. So usually I copy most of the info from another video, if I can, one from the same artist, so I already have some of the details I need. I always have that little disclaimer at the top. I link to the album if it's on something like Bandcamp or the artist's own site. Also, in some cases, link to a music video. And double checking that I got that album right, because I just kind of guessed it based on the other URL. And it was right. And then we wait. Okay, so it's loaded in. So now I pick which frame to use. Sometimes I upload one if I don't like one of the ones that auto-generated, but often I will just use an auto-generated one. This time I did not detect the copyrighted track on it, but often it does. I always put it as unlisted first while I wait for it to render into full resolution. And in the meantime, I go and find a link on YouTube for the original audio, as well as use mine to add to a playlist. I have a playlist called Listen Then Sing and Just Listen, so I'll put the original audio on both of those playlists, and then I'll put my karaoke track also on the Listen Then Sing. So this is the official audio. And I forget what I'm doing for a second, and then go back and realize, oh yes, there's a button right there to add to playlist. Okay, so now it's on there. Check if it's rendered yet. It has not gotten to full resolution yet, I think. But go ahead and add to playlist. So if you really pay close attention to my playlist, you can see some of the songs before they completely render. Okay, so now I go to my drive. And I upload all 3 versions to the Google Drive for offline use. First, I test this one out to make sure it's worked okay. Okay, so now all 3 are uploaded there. I have a little index file here where I list all the songs along with their file names and some details about the audio and the release date, that kind of thing. Don't know if anyone actually uses it, but I like to have a record here. Okay, so that's all set. Go recheck YouTube now. And looks like we got full resolution. So preview it one more time. Alright, seems good. So last step is just going to be to publish it, since it's still unlisted. Which I will do eventually. There we go. And done.